I felt like I had to protect myself from being hurt from people that I love. But I couldn't figure out how I was gonna make it. The role, she was like, treat people how you want to be treated. And that is always how I...
Alicia Keys didn't hint. She allegedly named it. According to the account we're using, she called out Lala Anthony for being secretly engaged to Swizz Beatz, her own husband, not a coy caption, not a blind item. A direct line drawn in this. If true, this isn't a sudden spark, it's the flare at the end of a long fuse. The story laid out is simple and messy at once. Signs stacked up, a pattern emerged, and the quiet stopped. The question isn't whether people were whispering. It's whether Alicia chose to end the whispers by saying out loud what everyone else danced around. And if this engagement exists, the script suggests it didn't begin yesterday. It grew in the corners, lived in the pauses, and waited for a moment when ignoring it would feel more dishonest than confronting it. That's the stage we're stepping onto. One claim, one triangle, and years of little tells, now read as one continuous line. But if a line exists, where did it really start? The telling here doesn't frame Alicia as impulsive, it paints her as observant. She allegedly noticed dissonant details, a late-night meetup that didn't match the schedule, a string of messages with timing that felt off, captions that read like private jokes without a punchline. Each item alone meant nothing. Together they built weight. You can dismiss a glance, you can excuse a delay, you can shrug at an emoji, you struggle to ignore a pattern that keeps reshaping your day. The portrait we're given is of someone who tried to handle it quietly until quiet felt like surrender. That's when the move shifted from patience to clarity. If the engagement was truly happening behind the scenes, silence would have been complicity. Naming the situation became a way to stop playing along. In that frame, the call-out isn't drama for drama's sake, it's boundary setting. It says, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm done with, and this is where the story changes. And once a boundary appears, everything near it has to declare which side it's on. Stories like this rarely hang on a single gotcha, they live in the ordinary. Old photos that sit fine until the future gives them context. Parallel appearances that looked routine until the map of events gets overlaid. The account we're following threads these pieces together and reads them as one arc. A quiet bond building in public places, explained away by proximity, protected by ambiguity. There's no single smoking gun offered here. There's inference. There's consistency. There's the suggestion that two people moved with an ease that made sense to them and only started to make sense to everyone else later. If the engagement rumor is true, it wasn't a sudden leap, it was a slow roll. Small moments turned into markers. Markers turned into a path that, once traced, looked less like coincidence and more like intent. That's why naming it now lands so hard. It doesn't invent a narrative, it snaps one into focus. And clarity isn't the only pressure point. There were counter moves too. An earlier wave of whispers drew a fast, blunt response. Knock it TF off. That reply was sharp enough to echo. Then came spectacle. The script recalls a gift so large it needed months to deliver. A custom luxury car with a bow big enough to fill a driveway. Music followed. Remixes. Praises. Public devotion dialed up to 11. If you read everything at face value, it's romance loud, lavish, and certain. If you accept the premise of a hidden engagement, the same gestures read differently. They look like floodlights aimed at the official couple, ensuring no one lingers too long in the shadows where the real puzzle might be. The truth could be simple affection. The transcript's lens suggests strategy. Big moments to occupy the room, love notes to drown out subtext, spectacle to keep the conversation on brand. Whether you see devotion or diversion depends on what you think needs hiding. But a second storyline complicated the center even more. There's a twist that doesn't point at Lala at all. It points at another woman. The claim, an alleged pregnancy, a hush around paperwork, and a new focus that yanks attention sideways. In the version we're working from, some read this as a decoy convenient, tidy, and effective, make the other lead nameless. Paint the problem as random, let rumor chase a new silhouette while the original connection remains unspoken. If that's what happened, the engagement story never went away. It just stepped behind a scrim. Alicia's alleged call-out tears the scrim down. It says the center of gravity never changed. It only wore a mask. That's the power of naming. It cancels the fog machine. If there really is an outside child, that's one kind of breach. If there's also a secret engagement, that's a different breach entirely. One that comes with promises, not just mistakes. Two fires, one house. And in the background, there were always rooms where proximity told its own story. Not every signal lives in a DM. Some happen under lights. The transcript points to events and interviews where the vibe between Lala and Swizz looked unforced. Comfortable smiles, rhythms that matched, conversations that flowed. On paper, it's professional. On playback, people saw chemistry. No single exchange proves an engagement. But a string of them suggests a through line. Two people who seem to find the same space, speak the same tempo, and settle into the same laugh. Pair that with late-night whereabouts, Alicia allegedly flagged, and the puzzle feels less like scattered pieces and more like a picture that keeps reappearing. The claim isn't that the carpet gave it away, it's that the carpet didn't hide it. When presence is consistent, explanation has to be consistent too. And when explanation breaks, story takes over. Still, story can be managed right up until someone refuses the choreography. The way this tale is told, Lala rarely pins a label when rumors start. She doesn't confirm. She doesn't deny. She lets motion do the talking. A new date here, a hint of someone else there, enough to shift the lens without anchoring the narrative. That's a skilled approach. A moving target is hard to pin. It's even harder when the other names stay quiet too. But this strategy collapses when a central figure stops playing the game. Alicia naming names isn't just a public statement, it's a structural change. The curtain that kept the main connection in soft focus gets pulled. Once that happens, decoy storylines can't carry the weight. The center returns to center. If an engagement existed, it no longer lives in implication. If it didn't, someone still moved in ways that invited the implication. Either way, the curtain drop forces the scene to stand on its own. And when a scene stands bare, the past starts to rhyme with the present. There's a history here, and the narrative suggests Alicia knows it well. This isn't framed as a single misstep, it's a loop. Grand gestures after hard questions, polished photos after private storms. A public milestone crowned just as a private line gets crossed. The account even nods at paperwork, language, tests, filings, steps that exist beyond captions. Whether those specifics are solid or speculative, the core message remains, the pattern feels familiar. And Alicia is done watching it unfold in silence. Calling out Lala by name is less about shaming a rival and more about refusing a storyline that once went unchallenged. It says the price of discretion got too high. If there's a child outside the marriage, the loop snaps. If there's an engagement inside the triangle, the loop becomes a mirror. Either way, the decision is the same, refuse the rerun. And that decision points toward the last fork in the road. If the outside baby rumor holds any truth, where does a secret engagement land? Does it step into daylight the moment the marriage dissolves? Or was it always meant to remain unspoken, a forever private promise that thrives only in the dark? The framing here leans toward inevitability, choices compounding, patterns returning, quiet ties asking to be named. There's also the timing question, public celebrations on one side, private revelations on the other. One can be sincere and still be out of sync with the facts arriving at the door. The engagement thread, if real, would move from suggestion to status. If it isn't real, the choices that inspired the suggestion still need answering. That's the heart of the subject you gave. Not hype, not trend, but a tangle of commitments that can't share the same space forever. Something has to step forward. Something has to end. And that brings us to the last word. Strip the noise away and the subject stands. Alicia Keys allegedly called out Lala Anthony for a secret engagement with Swizz Beatz. The telling we used sketches of slow-building connection, read across years of small signals, texts that didn't match the clock, appearances that made sense until they didn't, gestures that could be devotion or misdirection. A second thread, an alleged pregnancy with someone else, pulled focus, but the call-out yanks it back, naming the center rather than chasing silhouettes. If the engagement exists, it didn't arrive with fireworks. It grew in daylight disguised as routine. If it doesn't, movement still mimicked commitment, and silence did the rest. Either way, Alicia's alleged boundary changes the weather. It forces the story out of hints and into choices. That's the consequence of a line in the sand. Once it's drawn, everyone has to step forward, back, or away. And if the past tried to write the future, the ending now belongs to whatever truth is willing to stand in the open. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of the other celebrity gossip. Thanks for watching.